This is the best part about jam. Oh God. Oh hey, my name is Nadia and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we're making Linzer cookies, which are basically 2 cookies, one complete and one with a shape cut out in the middle, that are sandwiched together with some jam. They're actually traditionally Austrian cookies, which I am not, so I'm going to be making my mom's version, which from what I've researched, I think is going to be just as good as the real ones. So on that note, let's get cooking. We're going to start off with KitchenAid, our stand mixer. I'm going to beat the butter until it's creamy, making sure to scrape down the bowl every now and then I'm going to add the sugar, and same thing, scrape down the bowl every now and again. Next, add the eggs one at a time, a little bit of vanilla, and some lemon rind. I also thought that the natural lighting in this moment was gonna look really cool, but looking back on it, it looks really weird. It's not really doing anything for the mixer or the butter, so bear with me. At this point, you can also see the mixture is a little clumpy. Don't worry, it happens. I probably could have beat the butter a little bit more initially, but we're moving on from it, it's okay. Set the butter mixture to the side for a second and we're going to focus on the dry ingredients. In a bowl, I have the almond flour, to which I'm going to add some baking powder, cinnamon, and salt. If you're doubling the recipe, it's suggested to not double the cinnamon as well because it's going to change the color of the cookie and make it a little more brown. I think they look a little bit better when they're a crisper white, but that's all up to you. Go ahead and add all the dry ingredients to the wet and combine. This is an important note for Linzer cookies and just baking in general, really. I think I've said it before, I've definitely said it before, but I'm gonna say it again. When you're adding flour to any mixture, you might not need all of it in that specific batch. This is gonna depend on your ingredients, the temperature, many factors play into this. So what is suggested, aka what my mom always tells me to do, is to add a little bit of flour at a time because it's always gonna be easier to add than to take away. This is also an important life lesson in general. You can always add spice, you can never take the spice away. Today I needed all the measured flour and then a little bit extra. It's winter, the air is dry, there's no moisture going on in here, okay? I know it, you know it, it's a fact. So I do believe I needed the extra flour, not because of my environment, but more so because I left the butter out at room temperature for a little bit too long, so it got a little too soft, and I think that impacted the whole dough. But that's okay because you can always, again, add more flour. It's easier to add the flour than to have it be all completely too dry and then have to add water, and then honestly, that's just when you need to start over. I've made that mistake so many times. Save yourself the trouble, add the flour because you cannot take away the flour. That is my life lesson, okay? In this dough, you're aiming for a semi-firm texture. So something that you can mold, it's gonna hold its shape, but it's not like a fluffy bread dough. So when you do knead it all together and you press your finger in, it's not gonna bounce back up. It's gonna probably stay exactly where it was. It's gonna hold its shape. You're kind of aiming for Play-Doh, not silly putty. You don't want it to like be melting through your fingers or sticking to the counter too much. If that's the case, just again, keep adding the flour. I almost said keep adding the dough, but you know, the flour, you get it. Once that was all combined, I split the mixture into 2 discs and wrapped them in saran wrap and then let them chill in the fridge for about 30 minutes. This is a butter-based dough, and what happens to butter when it gets cold? It hardens. So by putting it in the fridge, you're letting the dough harden a little, and it's gonna be a lot easier to work with because next we get to shape the dough. Cookies or buttons? Neither. This is actually, if I can open this, a Linzer cookie cutter set. I hesitated there for a second. Where we got this, I have no idea. I asked my mom and she was like some random store, some many years ago. But it's really cool. If you don't have one, that's totally okay. You can still make Linzer cookies, but this is gonna make it a lot easier and I will tell you why in a second. For the base of these cookies, you wanna have a complete circle. So no holes, just a complete circle. The Linzer cutter has special kind of like scallops on the sides that make it look like a flower almost, but if you don't have a cutter with this kind of design or shape, it's fine. You can use literally anything that's a circle. So if you have a plain old circle cookie cutter or a shot glass, a cup, an old yogurt plastic container, I've used it all and so can you. It's not a big deal. I don't know what size this is actually. This one is 2 inches, so I guess that's kind of what you're going for. You can of course make them bigger or smaller, but because this is the official Linzer cookie cutter, I would aim for about 2 inches. So, to cut the dough. You're gonna flour your surface, flour the dough, take a sheet of wax paper, and then roll your dough out to about 1/2 centimeter. This cookie cutter has a plastic insert that you can press to like get the dough out if it's stuck. So the depth here is 1/2 centimeter. And when you sandwich them together, that means that you're getting a full centimeter and then plus the jam in the middle. I find that's a very nice appetizing ratio. However, some of the cookies I cut are definitely a little thicker, some are a little thinner. Aim for consistency and just don't make them too thick, because first of all, they're gonna take forever to bake, and second of all, the ratio of jam to cookie is gonna be it's gonna be off. So aim for about 1/2 centimeter. Dip whatever cutter you're using in flour and then firmly press it into the dough. You can see here that one side of my dough was a little too thick, so the inside part of the cutter was touching the dough and it left an indent. So I just scrapped that dough and I rolled it out again to be a little bit thinner. I also added some more flour to my dough when I went to re-roll it because it was still a little bit on the squishier side, and this way the dough just firmed up a little bit more. I would recommend doing all of your base pieces because they're gonna have a more even cook time that way. And once they're out of the way, you can get started on the top piece, aka the piece with the fun little shape cut out in the middle. For the top pieces, you're gonna do the exact same thing. So roll your dough out to 1/2 centimeter, and then this is where the Linzer cookie cutter gets really cool. The main cookie cutter has these little slots where you can twist in any shape that you want. We have a bunch in this box, so we have like a star, we have candy canes, which also kind of look like J's, but those are really fun around the holidays. We also have an angel, a Christmas tree, what else is in here? This is a teapot. These are also really fun around Easter, like the springtime. There's a bunny. But today I'm going to be using the heart. So, like I said, just twist that right in. And then this cookie cutter is gonna do all the work for you. So you're gonna press it into the dough and it's gonna cut the round circle shape. And it's also gonna cut out the heart in the middle, so you don't have to do any extra work. It's such a cool little tool. It made it really easy to make these cookies. But if you don't have a Linzer cookie cutter, that's totally okay. If you used a circle cookie cutter for the base, you're gonna use the exact same circle cookie cutter for the top. And then you can take any smaller cookie cutter that you have to cut a design in the middle. I played around with some letters because I wanted to do some X's and O's. So if you have mini ones of those, anything that is gonna fit inside the circle will do just fine. I also kept the shapes that I cut out for fun, but of course you could just add them back to the dough and make some more cookies with it. Tip: make sure you make the same amount of base cookies as you do the top decorative cookie cutter cookies. I don't even want to say that again because that was just fluid, that was me. Like I said, these are going to be sandwiched together, so you want to make sure that they all have a pair. Those are going to bake in the oven at 350 for 10 to 15 minutes. I think the sweet spot for these ones was like 12 minutes, but again, each oven is different, so just keep an eye on them. Every cookie is going to have its perfect pair. For example, this base and this top are not a perfect pair because the top is way bigger than the base, which means jam is just going to pool everywhere. So before you assemble them, you want to make sure that each cookie finds its perfect pair. I didn't even plan for this, but that is very on brand for the theme, which is Valentine's Day. So there you go. See, look, that's the perfect pair. They fit together. Call me a matchmaker. Once they are completely cooled, you're gonna dust the top pieces with some icing sugar. If you do this when they're still really hot, the icing sugar is gonna melt, it's gonna clump, it's not gonna look good. So do it when they're completely cooled, please. Then with the base pieces, as my mom says, you're going to jam them. I'm using a seedless strawberry jam because it's going to give the cookies some really nice color, and the seedless part is going to make for a very smooth finish. But of course, you can use whatever jam you like. Now, when you jam them, you're going to take a spoon of jam, spread it on the cookie, and keep the center a little bit thicker, and then just sandwich the two together. Now, I have seen what to me is some very questionable ways of jamming these cookies. I don't really get it, but I've seen some people fill a piping bag with jam, and then what they do is they fill the outside of the cookie with jam, they sandwich it together, and then they continue with the piping bag and they fill the middle. To me, that that just seems like a lot of extra work, unnecessary work, if anything. The only way that I think that would make sense to me is if you were using like 2 different jam flavors and you wanted, let's say, like the outside to be strawberry, the middle to be blueberry. That could be like a party in your mouth flavor wise, but work wise, and because you have to do these all individually too, right? Like that's a lot of work for these cookies. That might be something that you want to do, might make sense to you, it just doesn't make any sense to me. You can also jam all the cookies and then ice them with the icing sugar. The jam should absorb the icing sugar, so you'll still get that nice red shape in the middle. It's not going to take away from it. But I have shown you how my mom has done it, so that's just what I'm going to do. And finally, the taste test. They're delicious. They have this like kind of cozy vibe to them. I think it's the almond and the cinnamon, and of course the jam too. It always just kind of gives like a cozy feeling. These are firm, yet somehow like really crumbly and soft. They're perfect. To be fair, I overbaked them like probably just a smidge, but they're still good, and they didn't like, it doesn't look like they burned, so it's totally fine. Once you've jammed them, you can store them in the fridge, and the jam is really gonna like harden. It's gonna be easy to stack them, transport them, and if you don't want to jam them or assemble them in any way, shape, or form, you can very simply just put the plain cookie, no icing sugar, no nothing, and just put it in the freezer, and when you're ready, you can jam them then, or you can just very simply eat them like this. Before I say goodbye, I'm going to tell you our Serbian word of the day, which is SRCE, and that means heart, which I think is very appropriate for today's video. On that note, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you soon. Okay, I'm done. Today specifically, I keep looking at myself in the camera, and then it just looks weird afterwards. Like, okay, in the camera, not in the camera. In the camera, not in the camera. I don't know if you can see a difference, but sometimes I see it afterwards and it drives me crazy. Lights, camera, action. I also got new lights, which I don't even know if I put them in the right places. You can kind of see the reflection in the microwave, but it's okay. Where was I? Today I needed all the extra. It's not that I'm rushing, but I'm rushing. I'm talking to myself. See, like this. Well, not really. Okay, I think I can do this. Today, set the butter mixture to the side for a second, and you make noise. It's fine. Okay. I'm wearing Baba's shirt, and it's actually really comfortable. I think she's onto something. I didn't even have to roll my sleeves up. I don't own anything pink, and yet pink is my favorite color. It's suggested to not add double the amount of cinnamon.